let's get started with improving hiring in C++. So I've been now involved for more than 10 years in doing community work with C++. So I've been hearing it for a while now that C++ devs are just hard to find. And before those 10 years, or already it's been since 2007, I've been a freelancer, and then I also always been hearing it from the headhunters, which were looking for projects, and C++ developers were always hard to find. That's just how it is, how it always has been, and of course, one can wonder why. Why is it that? Well, one of the reasons probably is that C++ is a hard language, and that is not as popular, like for example Python, and so by itself has a smaller population of developers. But that's the easy answer, right? But also on the other hand, everyone is looking. Everyone who there's very few companies who are not looking for new devs nowadays. So that's also if a C++ developer comes to the market and they're good, they have multiple offers, and only one of those offers they can take, unless they're, I don't know, is there any C++ developer out there who's doing 2 jobs in parallel as remote? I heard that's a new thing in the pandemic. Maybe some developer out there is doing that and having a heyday. But also, the ones which are not looking get a bit alienated by the folks looking. I know these messages are in German, so most of you probably will not be able to read them. But yeah, you probably received similar ones in either your native language or in English, which are just being sent to everyone, and that way you find your candidate, but you kind of alienate the folks which you are actually looking for, but the ones which are not looking for a job right now, right? And and I always find it funny that they claim that they looked at your profile. Okay, and this is from a German platform, which is Xing, and here I have it explicitly standing that I'm not looking for projects in my profile. And so if you've been looking at that, then you maybe could have seen that I offer recruiting for C++. Contact me for that. Hey, cool. But that's very rare. Most recruiters just copy paste me their texts and the search agents, etc. So today that's automated. I guess you all know the trick of having this emoji in front of your name at LinkedIn, and then when you get an automated message, your name gets copied into the message and you see the emoji. And if the person contacting you and writing you and saying, "Hey, Jens," then the emoji is not there, so you can see if it's an automated message or not. And this is one of the most recent examples. So on Xing, my profile picture is 15 years old when I still had long hair and monitors were smaller, and so this image is a lot smaller than it should be. And in the modern web, this gets blown up to be pixelated, and it's really hard to see on the image that I'm not a woman or what gender I have, but I'm getting misgendered here. And on the one hand, that kind of shows that the recruiter cared for my gender and thought that I'm a woman. Fine. I can, of course, answer that or not. But on the other hand, I want to point out that for women, it is very, very common to be misgendered in our community, especially by folks writing those automatic messages, because the default developer, or most developers in our world are still male, and so this is basically what the copy paste message is. And then they also kind of happen to send this to some woman, but then they don't think about that. also very common is just to adjust like the text for the greeting, like then they get that they're right, but in the text they're still speaking of a male person. That's another thing which is common. Also, an experience I had a few years ago is changing your status to not looking for projects will get you emails from people who are looking for freelancers, which are looking for projects or for jobs, because that triggers search agents which have been looking for projects and maybe are looking, or just for people who changed something in their profile which has projects in it. I see that on Xing like that they often now show like the things which are like, which I have in common with the profile I'm looking at. And one thing they often show me is that I have hiring in C++, which you see like what I offer that is in common. But then I think that they match like a text search. If something of that text matches with something they're offering or they're searching, then that's a match. And that happens often when I look at a C++ developer's profile and they have C++ in there, then they happen to be interested in hiring, which, yeah, that's not always the case. And I'm also, disclaimer, I'm not working as a headhunter, okay? So I'm not looking at your profile to see if you're available for a job. I probably look at your profile because you joined my group, or maybe you visited my profile. I'm not just curious who is visiting my profile and looking at those people. If they're interesting, should they message them or not? Stuff like that. But when I prepared this talk last fall for the conference, which I think I haven't really mentioned yet. So this talk was prepared for me, it was 2021. And so I asked last fall in Twitter, how prevalent is that problem that people, waste their time contacting developers which aren't looking for a job. And so this is a result from last fall. And yesterday it occurred to me, wouldn't it be interesting to run this survey again for a day, and back then it ran a week, and see what the results are. And now if you see like not getting contacted by one is the highest rate in Twitter in last year in fall, and it was 35% in the beginning of November. And now this is the result from just like until I think until today this ran, and there you see that this drops by nearly 10%. And there's I go back, there's more than 10 is 18%. Now it's 30%. So this is like seems to change over the year, which is clear, but it seems to be interesting. But Twitter is not a platform where people are active that are looking for candidates. Okay, so this is an interesting sample for Twitter. Let's go to LinkedIn and ask there. And this is again the result from 2021, and then it is there 26%. We remember 30.5 something, 35 something percent was on Twitter back then. So back then already like a 10% difference, and it's kind of okay. It's clear that it is the case that more people on LinkedIn will be contacted by recruiters. That's common, But then you wonder, is it also then different there in this year in spring? And yes, it is. You see, it's like this halves from 26% to 13%. People which are not looking for a job, not have been contacted by a recruiter, only 13%. And also find interesting that within the day I get almost 300 people to answer this on LinkedIn. On Twitter it was a little bit less, but it's very close. So it's just a few votes, so it's comparable. But on the other hand, it's a clear difference, which is to be expected between the two platforms. I guess no one is surprised on that. And so I've been thinking if there could be a different approach to, just to bring companies together with people that are actually looking. And since I had started an online user group in 2020, I thought about, what can you do with an online user group? And our default content for user groups is and has always been talks. And so I was looking like the platform which we were using back then, which was Remo, what else we could do. And Remo had this feature that there was either a talk mode, which was the presentation mode, like what you see now, or that you're sitting on a table and everybody has to sit on a table in Remo. It's not like optional like in this platform. And then has to talk to the other people on the table. And they freely can go to other tables if they like to. And I thought, well, when we take this table feature to the maximum and have meetings without giving talks and just putting this table feature, what could we do to just have people go from table to table to have conversations? And one of the ideas for me back then was a job fair, because every company can have their own table with their logo on it, and they can have some recruiters on the table, and if you're interested in that company, you can go there. And that's how this has been looking for the first time. And last year, for the first event on the 16th, where we had 10 people attending, the first table was a welcome table, which is still the case. And then we had the 10 sponsors and some other companies with free tables. And so that's how the job fair has been born. And last year we had it 4 times. And that's also the goal for this year. We had the first job fair in March, in mid-March, and the next one is on the 3rd and 4th May. And for the 4th, I have to say maybe, because right now there is no company sponsoring the evening event. Sometimes companies do that. They attend both. Usually then they are on the 3rd and the 4th there, and that's the best you can do. This time that's not the case so far. Maybe that still happens, but otherwise we'll be only on the 3rd on the afternoon from 3 to 6 o'clock Berlin time on Hubido. And also this is accompanied by a form where candidates can share their CV with. And they can share it with sponsors, but also with the companies in the employer listing. And this form creates a light profile by asking for country, relocation, remote. You can click on some of the skills you have in C++, like the standard, various programming paradigms, some libraries, Qt, Boost, etc., etc. You see, some build systems are even, they're trying to extend that list with every event. And then there's also like field of work, like, in what fields have you worked, which is interesting for companies. And then, of course, there is years of experience. So how many years have you worked with C++, which is always interesting for companies. And if we look at some of the results from that form from last year, and this includes now 3 or 4 events, because the first event did not have the form. In that case, it was like feedback from the first event that companies would like to have more information about the candidates at first glance. And so I created that, or extended that form. It already existed back then, but I extended it to that. Also, this is an option for the companies to match on the various topics with candidates. So like if you only use for Qt, but I'm going to talk about that later. So as you see, this event last year and always has been very popular with India. And then there's a lot of people coming from Europe, a few people from the United States. We have some folks also from Asia and South America and Canada, etc. this is the folks which have used the form, which have submitted a CV or a resume over the form. It's not the visitors at the event itself, so it's not always the same mix. Now looking at the aggregate for what people actually choose to be, known as their C++ skills. What knowledge do people identify? What kind of C++ dev are you? And there we see the most popular thing which people identify with is C++ 11, followed by Linux, C++ 14, OOP, and modern C++. And then I also, as I mentioned, this is the fields of work. Not very surprising that desktop is the most popular, followed by other, which I tried to add more choices so that people click less on other. But other is also very popular because it's kind of an escape for people to cover something which isn't covered by that. And there will always be things which aren't covered by this field. Otherwise, it would be a list which is too long. But yeah, embedded server, finance, automotive is also very popular. And telecommunication was actually way more popular in the first event this year. And on the other hand, when you see like something like gaming, this also has to do with the companies which attend. If we had gaming companies attend and especially sponsor the event that they can, advertise with their logos, we probably would have more people coming from those fields. So it's always kind of, which fields are there at an event to attract the developers that want to work or that are working in that field and want to, meet those companies. Years of experience shows that it's overall a good mix, which is, using this form and attending the events. It's, of course, a few people which, would like to become junior, and then there's folks which are juniors and trying towards seniority, and then we have the folks which probably think about what they do after being senior, right? So we had some few folks which have more than like 25 to 30 years of experience with C++. And yeah, C++ itself is only 40 years old, so doing C++ for 33 years, that's amazing. And as I mentioned, this creates a light candidate profile which companies wanted, and companies also may filter on this or search it later to find candidates. And for candidates, then the next step would be to select the companies to share with. So companies don't get automatically access to a pool of candidates. No, the candidates still have to, select the companies they want to share with. And then, of course, share your resume and the upload and maybe add a cover letter. That's optional. Not everybody does it. So, and yeah, so I see this event as a long-term strategy, and I try to grow it with each event. And as I mentioned, the attending companies are having a strong influence on what is showing up as candidates. And here you see that is a graph on the submissions per event. So the first 4 events from last year and then the event from this year. The March event saw 71 submissions, so it's kind of the second place of events with the most submissions. And for the May event, I have no idea how many submissions we will have at the moment. Already, that's like also what I learned from the March event. From the day this gets announced, people start using this form. So at the first day when the event is announced, naturally there is no sponsor in this form, only the companies which are in the employer listing. And so that gets used then a lot. And this is the skills from the first event and this year. And there you can notice that C++ 17 now as the first event moved up into the top 5. If you put this side to side, so it's 22 and 21. You see C++ 17 is not in the top 5, it's a 6th place, and now it's on the 3rd place with the first event. And of course, this can change with the audience of the next events, but that's nice to see, and that's kind of the biggest change. And also modern C++ came from being 5th to being 2nd. And one thing I'm thinking about is like actually making a line graph with all events on, and then having the line being like how popular is C++ 14 and Linux and all the other things. But I haven't found time to work on that yet. Which brings me quickly to the event itself. There are sponsor tables, which are really important because the platform I'm using is not free, and I need to kind of finance my time, which I use to work on this, but also the platform itself. This includes then the access to the recruiting tooling, and sponsors are listed in the CV sharing form on the website and in the job section. And of course, when I get money for the event, I also can use it for advertising in other platforms. So I've spent some money on advertising for this, and spending right now money on advertising for this. And of course, also the feedback from those sponsors drives and guides the tooling which I write. The free tables are in Hubilo below the sponsor tables, and for getting a feel for the event format. And I limited it last year then to 2 visits because I saw too many companies just going for the free tables because it's free and it's easy to click, and then they just go for the free table. But in the end, then I have the work with the event and just have a bunch of companies coming, and I wanted to avoid that scenario. So that's now limited to 2 visits, and then support the event and be part of it and actually make it useful for the community. The free tables are only 4 seats instead of 8 seats for the sponsored tables, and right now I'm thinking about like having that, making free tables 2 seats and sponsored tables 4 seats, because with the last event we had 7 sponsors, and the Hubilo lounge is then it would be better to have it more dense, and we don't have the traffic to have like 8 seats filled on every table with 7 sponsors or 8 sponsors sometimes. And this is how the recruiting tooling looks. So of course you get a list of candidates where you can click through, see what they uploaded, read the message, and also the candidates. I mail the CVs to the sponsors, etc. That's a given, and then you also get the graphs of the population of kind of which candidates did submit to your company. And those graphs are also kind of know what kind of people have resonated with you as a company, but also kind of have those graphs available to compare with other things you're doing in hiring, but also kind of to have that available to put that in presentations and to show we did that and this is the result. And also it includes like a search for CVs and resumes, where you can filter on certain properties. And the thought behind that is that maybe when like 40 to 50 candidates are submitting to your company, you want to have the ability to search those candidates for certain positions. I have some companies which only have a few positions, and that's not a very useful thing. But if you like have various people use this and they have various other positions, and one team uses Qt, then they are interested in candidates that know Qt, and the other team is using OpenCV or just generally doing C++, then they can use that to find the right combination for them, or similar things. And of course, if you like, I made like all options available to filter on, and I don't know like how this is used. And there's also a text search to search the not the uploaded documents, but the cover letters to have that covered. And yeah, that is how the job fair looks on Hobilo now. And as I said, I think it's a long-term project. It needs C++ employer support, because only with companies actually being interested in that and being willing to invest in that, we will be able to continue to have this as an event online. And also for that reason, I definitely have to tell companies to sign up early, because it's like, again, for the next event in the position that we have like one company signing up early, cool. But advertising an event with only one company in it is really hard. So I think this has this time to do something with Easter, and that probably there will be some signups in the next week. And the whole thing, of course, with COVID, everything moving online has helped in bringing this on. And I'm still learning with the end, like with the dates, what dates are good for the companies to attend, what is working in Hobilo, and which feature sets should be used for that, and offer. And one thing I'm currently thinking about is to extend the event to 3 days, because right now it's like 1 day in the afternoon and 1 day in the evening. And I am thinking about extending it to 1 day in the morning, 1 day in the afternoon, and 1 day in the evening, so that we kind of, can be more friendly to Asia. And also most of the recruiters rather want to work in the morning or in the afternoon, and less companies want to work in the evening. But the evening brings the US companies, if they would join this at 1 day, and also brings that's like also the feedback I've seen. The evening event can be the better candidates, because the candidates joining in the evening are people which have worked at the day, and they're coming because they're looking for an alternative for their job, or just want to look. But that can be really interesting developers. Also, so attending the evening event with less companies brings you candidates which maybe just are available at that point, and then the advantage of the companies which are coming in the evening is that this is like a strong filter for them, that they only get to speak with them. But on the other hand, you have to work in the evening then. And I've seen some engineers enjoy that and attend for their companies there, and hire for their teams, and just have a relaxed conversation. This is again the tables, which is basically everything which I already covered. So I'm going to jump over that slide. And yeah, let's have a quick overview over all the companies which have been on the event. This is the first event, and it was 10 companies sponsoring this, as you see the logos here, in March last year. And then from these 2 companies, I know that they have been hiring through the event, that they met people through this. And I don't have the best feedback mechanism, and I'm still kind of working out a feedback mechanism for candidates. But that's the 2 companies I know about. And then also here's at least one company in which at least has talked to candidates, and but they told me like that they had some fitting candidates they wanted to hire, but as you know, there's competition, so they already had a different offer, and so they weren't on board anymore then. And that's November, and if you counted correctly, you get 15 companies in total, which have attended that in the last year, in 2021. But there's more. I also launched this employer listing last year, and 3 companies are currently listed in that. And so if you count correctly, that makes 17. And yes, the employer listing is basically you are with an employer profile and your logo on the job section listed for 1 year at Meeting C++, and you're also automatically listed in the form for this 1 year. So that is the best way to profit from the job fair, because you get like from the first day to the last day, and in between all the CVs which are being shared by candidates. And when you sign up late as a company to the job fair, you're not getting the CVs which have been uploaded prior, because I still want the mechanism that candidates choose which companies they want to contact, and not like have just a group of CVs or a selection of CVs ready to companies, like a pool where everybody can look into. That is something which I don't want, because then people get spammed again, right? So yeah, as I said, 17 companies in total. The first event had 7 companies, and the next event has currently 1 company signed up as a sponsor, which is IBU. And yeah, that's them. And so 3 plus 1 is 4 companies are currently listed. And if you want to submit your CV to those, that's the URL. And like if you want to wait a week or until the event, that's fine. Then maybe more companies will still sign up. As I said, this time, I think the Easter holiday is like blocking companies to sign up, so there will be more signups. And one pattern I've noticed with companies attending is that they attend one version of it and then they return not to the next, but like they usually skip 1 or 2 events and then they come back, because they attended and they got their 40 candidates, 50 candidates, and then they try something else, or maybe just need half a year until they hire again. So the newest feature I implemented prior to the conference last year was 2 ways of managing candidate state. So the default is normal and just default, I think. And so this is the priority is a way to manage the sorting. So if you mark a candidate as priority or high priority, they show up above all the other candidates that have submitted CVs to you. That makes it easier for your team to find them. And then also you could manage the state internally to who has been contacted, who has been rejected, and who you want to delete, so that they are not visible anymore in the interface to you. And I do that because as I said, 40 to 50 candidates is for an event normal, which companies see. And I think that we will have an increase in submissions over time, probably. So I want to be ready to have like 100 submissions for an event. And then people probably want to be able to do things like that. And kind of, think that would enable feedback to companies, to candidates. But the problem with the companies is that the data from the last 2 events showed that this is not really used. So that was a nice idea, but it's not working as much. And the submission model is kind of explained here. A candidate uses a form, and the form then makes the candidate select the employers which they want to share with, and only employers which already matched with the interests or with the profile of the candidate. And the application state then ideally changes, or if they find them over the filtered search later, and then the candidate could look up in that. I don't have this displayed to candidates at the moment, so there is no way for you as a candidate to know that. But because I was do companies use this? And at the current state, I have not seen companies picking this up. And the submission form itself, as I said, it creates like a profile with C++ guilds. I used to call them options, but skills is much better. Field of work in the region, so it asks for the continents, but later also you can select your country, and years of experience. But companies can only like filter on a region, not on various countries. And yeah, companies may filter or search on these. And for the community, I hope that we kind of can get a better way to have people that are looking for jobs connected to jobs, so that part of the funding that goes to headhunters, which spam everyone, goes rather to a more direct way to have people connect directly with candidates and not having everyone spammed. On the other hand, this allows me to offer free online events which are not about hiring, just today, and the job fair. And on the other hand, it of course also includes companies more in the community and in the platform, which I'm still building. And yeah, always looking for employers to join this and other companies to work with. And of course, many thanks to the companies that have joined in 2021, but also in this year. So thanks for listening. And if there are any questions, etc., I will now go back into the